I'm here somewhere with a bear in front of my face. All right, what's up, people? How you doing? Yes, I'm live on all channels. I don't know. I just felt like being on all the channels today. So you can watch me on Substack, Rockfin, Rumble, YouTube, or X today. I feel like it's a limited reach on Substack, and not everybody can make it to the Substack. So if you're on Substack, thank you for watching on Substack. I appreciate you. If anybody wants to spread the word that I'm live on all channels today, that would be great. I'm trying to do my best. I kind of started this show with a little less lead time than I wanted to. But in Substack, I'm not going to be doing any camera moves. You're just going to watch my head as I talk. And that'll be exciting, won't it? But whatever channel you want to watch on, just, go for it. And let's start at the beginning. Although I don't know what a good angle for Substack might be. You guys want to get a behind the scenes look? I don't know. Whatever. You want to look over my shoulder? You let me know what's better for you. Or do you care? Can you hear me here? Can you hear me when the camera is that far away? Or would you prefer the side view? Or do you really care? Okay. All right. Let's get into it because time is wasting. Time is slip sliding. Malcolm Young. Sliding in for first. on YouTube. Denver on Rockfin. It's all good, Denver. I understand people have busy lives. I have a very busy life. I get it. Whenever you can make it, that's cool. I saw this the other day, and it did strike me as somewhat silly. This reclassification of a certain kind of cloud. And apparently, they've made up. I've talked about clouds a lot. First tip off about why this cloud isn't real is it was at one time a straight line, and then you can see there's another straight line kind of cloud underneath it, and then they've decided to tell you that there's like precipitation coming from this cloud, and maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But the other tip off that this cloud isn't real is that rainbow hue. A lot of the man-made clouds have that like not quite that rainbow weird, not quite real kind of thing behind them. They also have the spidery kind of tendril look. That is a tip off that is not a real cloud. Real clouds don't do that spidery tendril thing. I know because I've been on the earth a long time, and I know what clouds look like. And I can tell you what clouds used to look like and what they look like now, and I can tell you that they're not real clouds. Bella says fly ash dripping out of the sky. But yeah, they've dubbed this a jellyfish cloud. Concerned Citizen says, did you know legacy meteorologists have recently just discovered 13 new types of cloud? Of course, this coincides with the global geoengineering spraying operations. They now call this one a jellyfish cloud, and they think you're stupid. It's, go ahead and give me all the reasons why the clouds look like straight lines, and then I'll go, sure. Sure thing. You like the multi-view, Mr. Wizard? Yeah. We'll get a little. What would be really cool is if I can incorporate this view into the Rockfin or Rumble view. That would be even better. I'm sure there's a way to do that, but whatever. I'll try and check on all the chats. It is not necessarily easy to keep my eye on all the chats. Interesting looking cloud. The sound is good. Okay, good. Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes I stop and take video or pictures of clouds to show y'all. But I've done this so many times. I've done that so many times. So I was in the title of the show called things disclosure equals program, and this is not a new idea, but I was just pondering, thinking about the idea that every time Trump has run as a president, there's been a big, of course from the left, cry of Trump is a fascist. Which doesn't make him different from any other president. It's just that he's more open about it. I mean, I suppose you could say Ronald Reagan was pretty upfront about being a fascist. I think George W. Bush. What's this? I'm going to have to look at that. I'm going to have to look at that link a little bit later, Mr. Wizard. Thank you. There have been presidents that have been pretty openly fascist. So I don't, in that regard, I don't think Trump is like too different. George, if anybody has a memory, that's the thing is, I remember things happening and how they were and how they, occurred. And George W. Bush was pretty openly fascist, pretty openly warmongery, pretty openly right-wingery, and pretty openly anti-speech, and pretty openly, increased presidential powers, and all that stuff. But the thing is that even though there were the cries of, Trump is a fascist, it didn't stop people from. It didn't stop him from becoming president. It didn't stop him from becoming president twice. If he was really that big of a fascist, like, you think that there would be more of a resistance on the left. You'd think there'd be more of a resistance, just in general, by people at large. So I don't, I don't really know particularly what is exactly going on with the fact that we seem to be sleepwalking into a very bad future, and nobody can seem to muster the energy or the strength to really resist it. But what we seem to be getting is a lot of like programming of like, this is how the future is going to go, and then people are like, oh, this is how the future is going to go, and we just kind of accept that this is how the future is going to go. A lot of the disclosure of what the government has been up to in the past, that kind of ties into what the government is going to be doing in the future. All of this disclosure, and I think it's a good thing, the disclosure. I think people understanding what's going on, and how it relates to what the future is going to look like. I think understanding all of that is kind of key to survival, or at least sanity. But especially with the advent of the captured alternative, the mainstream alternative media, with the advent of that, with the proliferation of that going on, what we have is people cheering on this culture of disclosure. Yeah, wow, now we really know what's going on, and which is supposedly infiltrated even into the government, into Trump, being somehow woke and willing to like right the wrongs of the past, or at least that's what people are hoping he's going to do. However, all of this is being cheered on while Trump dismantles the Constitution, dismantles any shred of civil liberties that we have left. So and even as the Trump administration like continues to fund and support genocides, fund and support wars all over the planet, intends to go further into military escapades. We have this disclosure that the Trump administration called off a strike on Iran because reasons, but does that mean they're not still completely gung ho into getting us into a larger conflict, or supporting more military operations against the weak and the defenseless around the world? Not at all. He's going to continue doing that. Anyways, let's go through it. What's really happening? As opposed to the supposed disclosure. Like, I feel like Doge is part of that culture of right? Like Doge. Oh, Doge is going to go clean up the spending. They're all about efficiency. They're going to get rid of this, liberal Democrat, I don't know what else you want to call it, pork, as they used to call it back in the day, is spending on nonsensical activities by USAID or the State Department or other departments, in the hopes that we're going to save money, that we're going to stop doing these things that don't help people or don't make any sense, and they're just end up being like huge money grifts. That may or may not be true, that they're trying to do these things, but there's another end goal, which is not necessarily the divulging and the cutting of the spending. The end goal is to have further controls over you, basically, further implementing AI into the treasury, implementing AI into literally every aspect of the government, right? I mean, they're using AI right now. Let's look at this story about Palantir. Inserting AI into basically all government services, and obviously Elon Musk is a big proponent and developer of AI. In order to further ramp up, the control grid, is the basic end run of this. And while people might cheer on this disclosure of certain things that are going on, I think in the early days of the Trump administration, technically we're still in the early days of the Trump administration, but in the first couple of weeks, people were like, "Yeah, you get him, Doge. You get him, Elon." All the while not understanding that there was a headlong run into dismantling like every constitutional right as we know it, including due process. But let's look at this. And again, in the end, all of this disclosure, and even among the real truth tellers, even among the real investigative journalists, even among the people that are doing good work out there, in an authentic way, with with real hearts and real minds, and with good intentions, doesn't seem to be able to stop anything that's going on. People are just like, well, this is what's going to happen. Okay. And everybody's just sitting around like waiting for it to happen. So I don't really know. There is actually 0 point to all the disclosure. And all of this truth and all this truth telling and all, if there are, no consequences for the people who have done the harm or done the bad things, for one thing. And if there's no remedy to the path into a somewhat saner or more gentle future, I don't really, I don't understand the point or the purpose other than entertainment. Anyways, let's look at this. Palantir. Internal Palantir Slack messages obtained by Joseph F. Cox show the company did a recent sprint to build a tool that helps ICE find the physical locations of people who have been marked for deportation. Wow. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has canceled, things like the Consumer Protections Bureau, right? Canceled the cryptocurrency fraud unit task force or whatever it's called. They're suspending all of these things that are on top of just disobeying court orders or whatever the courts have to say. So if you just say screw the courts and whatever they have to say and whatever they're ordering as legal lawful orders, then you're basically opening the door to pretty much canceling the judicial system altogether, right? Like Supreme Court, who gives an F about the Supreme Court? They don't exist. They don't matter. We're going to just dissolve them because who cares anyways? I mean, that's kind of where it's going. Palantir, the surveillance giant, is taking on an increased role with immigration and customs enforcement, including finding the physical location of people who are marked for deportation, according to Palantir Slacks and other internal messages obtained by 404 Media. The leak shows that Palantir's work with ICE includes producing leads for law enforcement to find people to deport, keeping track of the logistics of Trump's mass deportation effort, and provides concrete insight into the Trump administration's wish to leverage data to enforce its immigration agenda. The internal communications also show Palantir leadership preparing for a potential backlash from employees or outsiders, with them writing facts that can be sent to friends or family that start to ask about Palantir's work with ICE. Wow. The new administration's focus on leveraging data to drive enforcement operations has accelerated those efforts. So this is really, I think in the end, like Palantir, Musk, Google, all of these entities are looking to get embedded in the intelligence agencies and government in general, right? And all aspects of the government. And this is probably the reason for Doge in the first place. While telling you that they're doing the good work, rooting out excessive spending or waste and corruption, right? Yeah, Denver, you have a good point. Denver says media space increasingly centralized was built to control and direct narrative, especially when narrative is contrary to reality. Never forget that. Yeah, I mean, you can say that, Denver, about any other agency in existence, right? The FDA, the EPA, they do supposedly, they're supposedly their purpose is to safeguard people and food and right, but it doesn't. And I think they offer and implement a certain like baseline standard of safety and protocols, but then there's a lot to be desired with their actual the job that they're doing to actually, CDC or whatever it might be, USDA. They might offer a certain level of baseline protections, but they let a lot through, right? There's a lot of damage being done to not only their lack of of safeguarding consumers, but seemingly intentional harm done to consumers, based on letting a lot of things go under the radar, or a lot of things fly, or even enforcing, the use of maybe certain pharmaceuticals or drugs or pesticides, or growing guidelines, or right, how meat is handled, all those things. Yeah, you all good to know, Bella. I don't know. Um, it's hard to control the Slack, not the Slack, the Substack stream. So I don't, that's kind of why I'm doing all the channels today. It's just it's a little frustrating, I think, for the watcher and for the provider of content to navigate the Substack live. So I don't know, until they up their game a little bit, or allow streaming from another source. If they allowed streaming from another source, man, it would be a game changer. But right now they only allow this like live, live on your phone stream, which is a little weird. It's a little weird. I hope they fix that. All they need to do is allow streaming from another source. And I feel like that should be a simple thing to do, right? Because everybody else has it. X, YouTube, Telegram does not have. Well, supposedly Telegram has it, but I haven't been able to figure out how to make it work. Like they tell me to put in a source from another, somewhere else, but it just doesn't seem to cooperate very well. But just a note, Substack, it would be really great if we could do that. So, right, and I've actually heard people cheer on, the disassembling or of the Department of Education, or maybe some other things that might be not just not helpful, but maybe even detrimental. But all of that is to say, whether that's whether you think you think that's a good development or a great development, but that pales in comparison to the absolute like onslaught of criminality that's going on, as far as what the Trump administration is doing as far as deporting people or rounding people up, being having the ability to just point their finger and say you're doing the wrong, and we're just going to scoop you up and either deport you or send you to prison, and nobody will ever see you again, like that. I'm sorry, but that actually is above and beyond. That goes above and cancels out completely any benefit that this other stuff they might be doing is going to give people. Right? Like it doesn't really. I don't really care. At this point, I could give two fucks about the Consumer Protection Bureau, or canceling some of the like the USAID. Sure, yeah, some of that stuff seems a little ridiculous, but I could give two shits about that. I don't really care. I don't really care if USAID is, like, I would prefer that due process and the dismantling of the Constitution not happen. Like, I would prefer to keep that in place, and then we could take care of the other things, in another way. But like, I don't really, I have my concerns are that another country is dictating, our actual, internal domestic policy as to how we treat people. And let's worry about that one first and foremost. But again, they're doing away with all these things in order to instill. You might see that as a win, but they're instilling. They're upping the game as far as surveillance, right? Like basically, Trump is all in for AI and having AI just be a part of everything. He's all in for, I'm sure, getting us onto a digital currency. They've already passed a resolution about switching everything over to a digital currency. Excuse me. Anyways, let's look a little more at this. I don't know if I can, honestly. Hold on one second. I mean, I think I've read enough of the story to let you know how it's going. Let's see if we can find this here. I mean, Palantir has been involved in helping Israel's military target people. So that should show you where their hearts are at, or where their interests are at. Let's see. Leak shows that Palantir's work with ICE includes producing leads for law enforcement to find people to deport, keeping track of the logistics of Trump's mass deportation effort, and provides concrete insight into the Trump administration's wish to leverage data to enforce its immigration agenda. The internal communications also show Palantir leadership preparing for a potential backlash from employees and outsiders. We already read that. Where can I see the rest of this? I need to see this whole thing. Hold on. Hold on. Nope. I mean, you know that they're quickly, AI is pretty much scraping, they're trying to get AI to scrape basically the data of every single thing you're doing on the internet is being sucked up and put into profiles, et cetera, et cetera. Denver says they are creating vacuums of power similar to when we killed Saddam or Muammar Gaddafi. Yeah. I mean, I'm just seeing, just in general, the disclosure industry, the truth industry, the conspiracy industry, being a big deal right now, even though I don't know, I think in the end, a lot of these conspiracy journalists are twisting things in a way that eventually end up just helping perpetuate power. So let's look at a few of these things. On the White House website, or COVID.gov, they have come out against Dr. Fauci. This is pretty wild. Do you think that Fauci is going to face any any consequences? Or do you think he's going to shuffle off to Buffalo or Argentina or someplace, or El Salvador? Not in a cage, but maybe on a ranchero. White House just updated COVID.gov and accuses Fauci of lying and covering up the origin of COVID-19 virus and making up anti-science policies. Wow. Completely corrupt. This is from Jimmy Dore. Completely corrupt corporate media was also responsible and on the forefront of lying, but pushing fake science and slandering the doctors who were telling the truth. The thing that still blows my mind is that the most is that people who do independent news shows, many of whom I know personally, completely went along with the lies, defended Big Pharma. But the thing is that, okay, so they're disclosing this. The White House is disclosing this. And people are like, yeah, what a win. But the White House is fast-tracking self-amplifying mRNA vaccines for the bird flu. So they're basically, and the White House was completely behind the development. The Trump administration was completely behind the development of the first of the COVID vaccine, of Operation Warp Speed. So they're not, the disclosure is just a cloak of we're trying to get to the truth for the masses, while they're actually the ones behind the thing that is. It's an incredible sleight of hand what they're doing, right? It's an incredible show what they're doing, like playing both sides of a story for many purposes, right? To sow confusion, to sow division, to set up one side against the other, to set up conspiracy theorists against people that are following the science, and whatever. Long discussion on that one. However, the people that are telling, supposedly on the side of the truth are actually behind the thing that they're telling the truth about. So it doesn't really matter. It's a trap anyways. They've got you from both sides. It's discouraging, to say the least. I mean, Jimmy Dore is pushing this out like, yeah, people were telling the truth, but where in this post by Jimmy Dore is he telling you that Trump was behind the vaccine? And most likely knew all, developed the vaccine in the face of probably the knowledge that it was leaked from a lab, and we can, then that begs another question, right? Chuck says a vax that continues to adapt itself is not a vax, it's a virus. Yeah. Right. So this is kind of wild that they're pushing this out. But remember, like, whoever was a conspiracy theorist at the time, right, that were pushing the vaccine on people were almost being equated with being like, domestic terrorists. They were being equated with being people that didn't, were anti-science and anti-government and didn't care about your health, and they should be locked. There were people saying you should be locked up if you were arguing against getting a vaccine, right? There were people that were saying anti-vaxxers should be, or at least censored or deplatformed or demonetized or, right, all that stuff. But now, right, Trump is putting into place, things that can target you for saying anti whatever it is, whether it's anti this or anti that or anti, this state or anti this war or anti, they can target you at will and say, like, you're on the bad list, you're on the naughty list all of a sudden. It is an incredible sleight of hand. Hold on. I'm trying to get to some other things. Here's another. Here's Marco Rubio telling Ben Shapiro that Biden was using your tax dollars to censor you.
That had been created and pushed a while back, but then exacerbated over the course of the last few years, hidden. What's the story with what you are doing over at the State Department to get rid of the body formerly known as the Global Engagement Center?
Yeah, I think you have to understand the history behind it. It's real brief. They started it by saying, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, all these terrible groups are radicalizing people online. We should do something about it. And, back when they came up with that 12 years ago, whatever it was, people are like, whatever makes sense. And then it metastasized. And it's like, oh, there's foreign interference in our elections. We need to start going after that. Well, then by 2020, it became a movement to go after voices inside of American politics and begin to label people. And they put a guy in charge who basically was going around saying Trump speaks just like these foreign terrorists. His supporters speak just like these foreign terrorists. So now you have an individual running a State Department entity that was labeling American speech by Americans as foreign interference.
Wait, but you're doing the same thing, dude. You're doing the same thing, dude. The Trump administration is literally doing the same thing. Glenn Greenwald says, how do these people have the audacity to masquerade as free speech champions when they've spent the 3 months devoting massive resources to deporting people legally in the U.S. for the crime of criticizing Israel, then forcing colleges to expand hate speech codes to protect Israel? Exactly. Or they were just saying, I just played a clip yesterday. They were saying, if you are advocating for due process for Kilmar, that you should be charged with aiding and what the hell? With aiding and abetting. So what is he? He's talking out of both sides of his mouth, right? Because they're literally pushing this stuff, but telling you, well, Biden was doing this stuff, and it was really, really bad when Biden was doing it. But we're totally doing it, and you're not supposed to say anything about it because yeah, okay, all right. Tulsi Gabbard is making a bombshell move, officially releasing over 10,000 unredacted documents tied to the 1968 assassination of Senator Robert F. Kennedy. But who, I want to know, but at the same time, they're not going to, what are they going to do about this? What's the end run of this? What's the upshot of this? Is somebody going to be found guilty? Are we going to have some kind of open discussion in Congress about what happened to RFK? Is that gonna lead to, a better conduct by intelligence agencies, or, what's going to be the upshot of this? I mean, I suppose, if there's nothing else to hold on to, if you can hold on to maybe some shred of hope that, like, some people like Tulsi Gabbard or RFK are gonna, steer Trump in a better direction, but not, don't hold on to that. That is a. But wow, what a But they're making it seem like, oh wow, look at oh man, now we're gonna know. Now we're going to know. What are we going to know? She didn't really say anything, by the way, in this interview. You want to listen to it? She doesn't really say anything.
And that there are many,
Just says,
there are many more to.
Oh, there's a lot more questions than answers. Oh, really? Wow, that's groundbreaking. I don't know.
Yeah. So this is, I mean, this has really shined a light on the need for more of these types of releases to occur. People will find in the release today, there's no quote unquote smoking gun, but there's a lot of interesting things that have not been previously known that really call into question what really happened.
Wow.
Was behind it.
Wow.
If you look on this memo alone, you see Kuwait, London, Tel Aviv, Beirut, Jeddah, Tunis, Benghazi, Baida, all of these American embassies who were the recipients of this cable. People are going to have to go to the website and read for themselves to kind of get an insight onto.
Just go to archives.gov and find out for yourself. This is whack. This is whack. All right. I mean, and what do we know about this already? You know, it's what everybody has already known already. You know, it was a CIA / Mossad operation. Well, okay. Ooh. Where is this? What is this going to get us? Like telling us what we already know. Is it going to get us free speech back? Is it going to rein in government power? Is it going to rein in the power of the intelligence agencies? Is that, you know, or is everybody going to go like, yeah, I knew it. Okay, now what? Now what? Your civil rights are still being shredded. So what are you going to do about that? Let's see. What's going on? Hello? Mark Zuckerberg recently built a massive data center for Meta in Georgia. There are residential homes just hundreds of yards away. It uses so much water, residents no longer have water pressure in their homes. Their sink water no longer works. The toilets don't fill with water. Their homes physically shake from the constant new construction. The data centers use so much power, they often go without power. The small amount of water they do get to their homes is full of sediment, I think is what they're trying to say. It's overwhelming because you can really feel you are up against this huge wall that you can't penetrate. There's nothing you can do, and they don't care. Yeah. Massive new data centers sucking up energy, resources, water. That's funny. Okay, here's more disclosure. Is this going to stop this from actually happening? Doubtful. They're just, painting a picture for you, and then, everybody's going to be like, is going to go, oh yeah, this is totally what's going to happen, bro. Yep, it's coming. And it's just going to happen, and then what? Whoa, sounds super scary, bro. Oh wait, it's here. Oh shoot. Oh darn. Okay. Should have seen that coming. And you're going to check out with the RFD chip, planted in your thumb, or I don't know, or your thumbprint, or I don't know, or your eyeball, most likely your eyeball. Okay. It's just a theory, not a fact. Are you sure about that? I mean, I feel like it's already, they're putting this in place, and it's going to get harder to use cash. Trump has already signed an executive order saying that digital, at least bank transactions will be digital. Is there a moment when all other forms of transactions are going to be digital only? There will be, but what are you going to do about it? Like, what are you going to do about it other than like wake up one day and go like, oh, we're here. Whoa. Okay. Okay. I feel like they're just counting on you just accepting that this is what it's going to be. It doesn't really matter if it's scary or not. They're just programming you to accept it. The more the more they tell you this is what it's going to be, this is what it's going to be, this is what it's going to be, this is where we're going to go, this is where we're going to go. We're going into this. We're going into this. We're going into this. And everybody's just like, well, everybody is freaking programmed to just be like, well, this is where we're going. How do you deprogram this? By the way, if you like watching this show, if you enjoy watching this show, if you like this show coming to you for free, Monday through Friday, and you want the show to keep on coming to you for free, Monday through Friday, you can support the show in many, many ways in the description box below of whatever platform you're watching on X. There's a link tree on my profile page. There's a link tree, and you can see all the links there. Lots of ways to support the show. Many of you support the show already. You know who you are, and I appreciate you. Man, the time on these shows is so short. I'm gonna have to do some longer streams. I'm gonna break down. I'm gonna have a breakdown. Well, look at this blast from the past. Back in 1991, in William Cooper's "Behold a Pale Horse," he told us of a CIA program called Orion that aimed to create school shooters. Just in case you thought these incidences are not manufactured. Just going to read this. The government encouraged the manufacture and importation of military firearms for criminals to use. This is intended to foster a feeling of insecurity, which would lead the American people to voluntarily disarm themselves by passing laws against firearms. Using drugs and hypnosis on mental patients in a process called Orion, the CIA inculcated the desire in these people to open fire on schoolyards and thus inflame the anti-gun lobby. This plan is well underway and so far is working perfectly. The middle class is begging the government to do away with the Second Amendment. which is more or less true. That's right. That's right. Chuck, support this channel. And yes, Shiny Rock 2028. Let's see. Denver says the sleight of hand is achieved because it's centrally managed. A centrally managed systemic effort. They made Trump the victim of big government. Was it all a show? Doesn't matter. Perception defines reality. Well, and that seems to be, I mean, it seemed to be a very well orchestrated campaign to get Trump elected again. And, you know, and I called it as soon as Trump lost to Biden. And I wasn't the only one, but I said, this is how they're going to keep people on edge. This is how they're going to keep people riled up, afraid, and freaked out. Biden, you know, Biden was supposed to win that that election. In order to, you know, ramp up and rev up this whole like Trump is the devil kind of thing, and he's, you know, he's off his rocker, he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And then he's gonna come back, right? He's gonna come back. Oh my God! And then there was the lame assassination attempt, which everybody thought was, you know, pretty shoddy showing of, you know, kind of an attempted assassination. You know, there was just all this, you know, all these narratives pushed out there to make Trump seem like the really, really bad guy, but yet he's an underdog. He's the underdog. And on top of that, to, you know, the Democrats, just to make the Democrats look like complete and utter miserable failures. I mean, there was no way, I just couldn't really understand people voting. You know, the only way you would vote Democrat is if you were voting against Trump, which is a very flimsy reason to vote for something, is if you're just voting against something else. But they literally gave people like nothing to vote for as far as the Democrats go. Like, I just don't, you know, just, you know, zoom out and just look at the whole scenario. Oh, this guy who could barely speak sentences and tie his shoes or walk had to be replaced 3 months before a presidential election with somebody who wasn't really, you know, all that functional either, right? With somebody who was, you know, not that great at speaking either, and who didn't have anything that she stood for. Like, not, you know, there were no overarching Democratic policies that were like, yeah, we're going to do this for you, and we're going to do this for you, and we're going to give you that. There was nothing. There was no message at all other than, you know, we're not Trump, and they're weird, and, you know, we're just the good guys. That's all. Just vote for us because we're just the good guys. They didn't, you know, they gave people nothing to vote for. So it's no wonder that they lost. And it seems all very well coordinated. And I think we've already been all the way through this before. Suckstack. All right. Well, you know, they're trying. We got to give Substack a, you know, an E for effort. Okay. The Crooks episode. Yeah. Yeah. Not only that, the so-called assassins of Trump were all in BlackRock commercials. That's not weird. That's not weird. The whole thing is I don't know. I think it's best to keep your eye on what's really going on as far as the inclination from the Trump administration to just lock people up based on absolutely nothing, with no due process. for no reason whatsoever. Deport people, take people out of the country, whatever it is. Like, keep your eye on that ball. I think that's the one to keep your eye on. And don't get caught up. Oh, Bella, thank you for the 3 coffees. I appreciate you. Thank you, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar. Yep. No, I agree with you on the Shapiro thing. Yep, I do. Yeah. Don't get caught up in these, so-called disclosure moments. And I'm sure there'll be more. I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of this, Oh, guess what? Yes, they really are spraying the skies with a bunch of junk. Oh yeah, we've been, I told you they've been building up to that one for a while. That's why they've been doing this. Like, well, these private companies are out there sending up test balloons, right? When Harvard can't go out and test it because they keep getting shut down. Supposedly about testing the geoengineering, but there's these private companies out there just doing it. What against what? They're just doing it without. They're not following international law or some kind of precautionary, method. No, they're just going out there and doing it. Okay, yeah, I don't believe you. I believe they're just, they're kind of building up people to the disclosure that, like, oh yeah, of course we've been doing this. We had to. I don't know. Malcolm Young says problem is people are watching the bus go over the cliff and just talk about it. They don't pack up their shizzle and change to buying land and a bunker and etc. Right. Anywho's. Don't know if I have any more to give you. It's about time for me to sign off. Oh, well, here's one more. This is kind of weird and hilarious. What is it? RFK Jr. blames environmental toxins for autism. Wait, what? Didn't he just come out and say, wasn't there a big disclosure thing about, didn't RFK Jr. just come out and do a big disclosure thing about vaccines and autism? I'm a little unsure about this. This is from today. RFK Jr. has reignited controversy by asserting that environmental toxins, and listen, I'm sure that plays into it just as much as anything else does. I'd say it's an aggregate of the whole, right? Like, you look at any problem, modern day problem that we have, and it's usually not just one thing, it's several things coalescing to build a problem. But he's saying it's environment. Wasn't he? Anyways, I'm a little confused. It sparked controversy by asserting that environmental toxins are a primary cause of rising autism rates, and that's supposed to be controversial. The stance challenges prevailing scientific consensus. Oh no, and has significant implications for American families navigating health, trust in institutions, and public policy. Okay. Blah blah blah. Okay, so environment. So they're saying, the CDC is saying that autism, the increase in autism is just because they're tracking things better. Okay, would you believe? So nothing has changed. Autism has always remained at the same state, right? Or percentage of the population. It's just because they're diagnosing it better. That's why it's been going up. Oh, okay. I don't know about that one. That sounds pretty unscientific, especially when the autism rates have, doubled, tripled, quadrupled in like 30 years. Oh, people were autistic before, we just didn't recognize it. But I'm not going to go with that one. Additionally, scientists took issue with Kennedy's framing of autism as an epidemic, arguing that it contributes to social stigma and undermines the concept of neurodiversity. What? Oh, they're saying you can't call autism bad because you're going to make people with autism feel bad. That's a line of reasoning? Okay. Or autism is good. This is how they're trying to frame it. Autism is awesome. Autism, great. So don't you say anything about autism being an epidemic because, celebrate your autism. Okay. All right. Anyways, there's a lot going on in this story. Apparently, he's appointed individuals with prior anti-vaccine affiliations to lead new autism research initiatives. Whoa. Okay, fearing these moves could politicize science further. Well, yeah. Meanwhile, they're pushing mRNA vaccines. Meanwhile, RFK Jr. did come out and say the best way to protect yourselves against the measles epidemic, the new measles epidemic, is to go out and get your vaccine. He did say that. So there's two messages. Like, which one? Which should I don't know. All right. Oh, this is a long. Okay. There's a big political debate about autism and what causes it. And RFK is either a hero or a complete lunatic. But you better pick a side. You better pick a side and get real angry about it, okay? Well, I don't know, Malcolm. Like, if your autism, like, if your autism were so severe that you were absolutely dysfunctional, would you think that would be great? I mean, I think there's degrees of, there's so many levels of, I guess, autism or what's the other one that's linked to autism or adjacent? Asperger's, right? I think there's levels of autism, Asperger's, whatever neurodivergent conditions that if you're mildly something, it could be a benefit. If it's kind of like the difference between I see things differently is okay, but if you're physically and mentally incapacitated to the point that you can't care for yourself, I would argue that is a negative. I would argue that that's a negative, and it would be weird for somebody to argue that that's not a negative because it requires that people have long-term health care, and it takes a lot of energy and resources and finances, and it also your quality of life is greatly diminished. I would argue that it was greatly diminished. Yeah, it's different. If you're a high functioning Asperger, this most people would put that label on a lot of, tech people, tech entrepreneurs, people who make, scientists. I'm just saying there's a different, level of neurodivergence, which could be a benefit. But, if you're non-responsive and can't, function in society out, or, on a level that other people can, I would argue that's probably not something you want to experience. But hey. And it seems like that level of autism is on the rise. It seems like that level of autism is on the rise, and I can see it with my own eyes. I see it in my society, in my immediate, the number of people I see suffering, because their children have this and are never going to be ever able to lead a normal life, and they will forever have to be their caretaker. It doesn't mean you don't love them and you don't want to take care of them and you don't value them. Just it's not something you wish for in your life. Yeah, I'm sorry, you wouldn't. Okay. All right, guys. That does it for me. Let's see. Denver says, looking at politics, all I see is a stable of B actors, politicians manipulating each domestic population for larger interconnected goals of technocracy. Yeah. Seems that way. All right. Thanks, guys. I don't think there's anybody else to thank or nobody I can see at the moment. But if you did contribute, I will get you on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. Thanks for hanging out, guys. I appreciate you. And I'll see you next week. Enjoy and peace out.